Welcome to Cafecito, a time, Cafecito con, right? A time where conversations with women and for women come to us to enlighten us, inspire us, help us learn, instruct us, and inform us of spaces where we can also go into and walk with our sisters, with friends, so that we can create these communities of women supporting women. We're hoping to bring you conversations for women and about women. We call our talks Cafecito con because we want to share a cup of love and create spaces for womanhood to chat, learn, grow. We want to retake our spaces of conversation about each other. We're not gossiping or chismeando, we are compartiendo, sharing our stories. More importantly, we're giving our best to each other. We'll talk about faith, life, business, hopes, and dreams. At least that's our dream. I am Delila Vasquez.
And I am Rosa Martin Munoz. Good morning, ladies.
And today we're having a conversation with our guest, Rayven Armijo.
Yes, and Rayven Armijo. Good morning. Good morning. And just to introduce Rayven, she's our lovely guest this morning, and she has co-founded Cuerva Folklorico in 2000, which was in collaboration with her late mother, Carolina Armijo, who is a legacy within the dance community. And this movement focuses on the legacy of her mother, Carolina. Rayven did study the Mexican folk dance and flamenco from her mother, and also trained with her father, martial arts. Her father is Sensei Ray. She did train with the Alvin Ailey Dance School and graduated with a master's degree in fine arts from UCLA. Now is doing amazing things, and we're really excited to have you here, Rayven.
I appreciate that. It's kind of fun when people go through your bio, right? It's like, oh yeah, I did all those things. You kind of forget.
Like, yeah, I'm a badass. Thank you for the reminder.
Very cool.
And the thing is that your bio only takes touches only the tip of the iceberg. I mean, I know you have done so much, so it's going to be exciting to hear you, to share your story, and to really put you out there for those who do not know you, to get to know you and discover the abilities, the creativity, and the awesomeness that Rayven has.
I've been learning things from the Lila, because there's only so much that you can find online about a person, but like the fact that you had taught in China, and you have a new opportunity there at Pepperdine, and all of these other things that aren't captured in a bio, so much more to you. And we're really excited to have you on our show this morning, and let's go ahead and get started.
Yeah, so let's start with who is Rayven? Who's Rayven Armijo? Tell us a little bit of the mountain that Rayven is.
I think interesting that my labels went in like a specific order. Like the order was so important to me. And I started to think, why is that so important to me? And it's interesting that, like, first I think of myself as a daughter. My parents are so important to me. They've like guided my life. They've taught me so much about just about who I am as a person, and I didn't even recognize it. I pushed it away so much and loved it so much. It's really like strange to say that. Like I simultaneously rebelled and embraced it. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, at the same time, really. And so like I think of myself as this daughter first. That's the first thing, and a friend for sure, because I think my friends are my family. They like have been so a part of my life. There sometimes my friends are my mom, sometimes my friends are my sister, my mentor, my brothers. It's crazy to think that, but they really are. I do see myself as a mentor And I saw that as a young age. And when I noticed that, I was going through a really hard time in my life and making really poor decisions in my life. And when I realized how I was a mentor, I snapped out of it. Like I didn't need the normal things that people need to guide them out. Like I just snapped out of it. I knew that how important that role was. My friend from Florida, I met her at UCLA. She's my partner. Her name is Casey Brown. She tells me that I'm a community organizer. She's like, you can organize community to do anything. Like that's how she sees me first. That's my number one label. And I guess I see myself as that. And then, lastly, a sister. And that is important too. That's crazy that it is. I do feel a sister last in meaning biologically, and it's really, it's kind of sad and reveals a lot at the same time. So I guess that kind of says who I am. I mean, you're right, I have done so much. I'm a risk taker, and that it has to do with my parents. They always encouraged me. They always told me how amazing I was, and they were like, you can do it. Like, of course you can. You can do a flip at 5 years old. Just do it. And I'd be like, okay, Dad, and I would just flip backwards, like, okay, and I guess I always knew they would be there for me too. That is helpful. But yeah, I'm a risk taker, and I think that has brought me to my lowest lows, but also my highest highs, really.
I want to tap a little bit on that community organizer. I mean, I discovered and observed that early on. My first encounter with you was as a teacher of for dance for my daughters, and I remember you teaching Ceci Carretero, and she was only 6 years old, and you were so hard and so demanding. And then, I would look back and I would look at you, I was like, but she's also a kid. you had so much power, and you would really bring it out. I mean, the girls, I think that if someone else would tell them and demand the things that you demanded of these 6-year-olds when they were dancing, I think that they would go into a corner, curl up, and cry. But that's not what they did. They wanted to show you that they could. You believed in them, and they delivered. And you could get them to do just about anything. If you asked them that they needed to fundraise, they went on and did it. If you asked them that they had to go and talk to their parents about something and that they had to be firm about it, they went on and did it. So your point of influence started, in my eyes, and my observing your development very early on, and you came full strong, and I came into, perhaps your teens, but by then you had a lot of formation. And then, I see you now tapping into those who were 6 years old, 5-year-old students who are now grown women with many talents, and you're pulling them together for this new adventure that you have, because community is just so important to you. And you communicate that. It's not, oh, come on, girls, let's do something fun. It's, come on, we have to give back. And then you don't necessarily put it in those terms, but just by inviting them, they know what they're signing up for. They know that they have to be there and they have to be present. And I think, there are politicians, there are CEOs that would love to have that power that you have, that you exude with these girls. But I think it's based on the relationship. You mentioned that you've gone through a lot, but you've also put in a lot in the relationship with the girls. So what inspires you to be that relationship? Where does that come from? Where is the essence that we can tap into and learn from?
That's a deep question, because I've never thought about it. I thought it was just natural, just the natural way of being. And I think, again, that stems from that label, the daughter, and I had a big job. My dad stuck me into a classroom at 10 years old and was like, everybody has to help, in our community, everyone has to help do the job. Sometimes it's at home and it's making sure that everything goes right at home. You clean, you cook, yard, like you have a job. It's not just chores. It's like your job. And sometimes you go out and maybe do the work with your parents, right? Well, in my case, I lived at my job. We lived at the studio. And so I was put in that position. And I guess like doing that, I had to create a relationship with my counterpart, whoever that was, a student, a classroom, a mother, that I had to end up talking to. Maybe I was only 13 and I was like, I got to talk to this mother about their daughter or son. How do I do that? And I think it was just like thinking of us as the same always. We're always equal. And that was very important to create a relationship. You're just as important as I am in this classroom, in this space, on this phone call. And what I value may not be the same as you, but we can end up figuring out if we talk about it. If we communicate, there has to be something we can figure out. And I think that was the most important thing. And I think the kids taught me that a lot. Like, sometimes I would mess up and they would have to tell me, you messed up on this, and I would have to accept that. And I think that is what I realized in the classroom. But then I started to realize, wow, my community is important to me, not only to teach, but to learn from. Like my financial situation, I didn't have a normal job like other people did. I grew up with my community supporting me. In a way, we had to ask for money, or they had to sponsor us, or when I went to China, like my community sponsored that. When I went to New York, my community rallied money, and put it together to help me. So it was always that I grew up very differently than other people, and I realized, whoa, community is everything. If we don't have that, how do we move forward in any kind of way? And that's it in a nutshell. I don't know. I've never talked about it before.
Yeah, you make it sound so simple, but you're right. We all participated and we all willingly were ready to support you. We love your talent. But when you stepped into stage, and still today, when you step into the stage and you're dancing, even if there is 25 people dancing around you, we can always spot Rayven. I mean, we have a night for Rayven. The many times that we've seen you dance, that's what we look for. And then as a mom, when my kids were dancing with you, I would spend time between looking at you and looking at my kid, because we were fortunate enough that Ceci did get to dance alongside with you, and I think Adriana danced a little bit with you too, but we were always taking turns because we all want to see our star on the stage, right? But you do have this presence that is in and outside of the stage that draws community. And I think what you said is key for us to understand that we are part of the community. You live it and you see it more present than many of us do. But that is true. We all are part of the community.
What I thought about, Rayven, hearing you speak, growing up with, your mother, your father, this family business of folklorico dance. And I thought about, I just had a conversation with a girlfriend last night about the Selena series. And growing up with a family of artists, and just being motivated from that, kind of like the community is molding you and your future. For you, our next question is purpose. Did you ever question, hey, I'm meant to be this dance? Because you also mentioned that you're a risk taker, kind of a rebel in a sense. Did you ever question this, path for you?
Yeah, lots of times. I rebelled against being a teacher often. I didn't want to do it. I was like, I'm never going to teach. I don't want this job. I don't want to be like my mom and dad. I rebelled a lot. And I tried to, take these adventures because I thought it was going to take me somewhere else. But in a way, my community knew that I was going to bring it back to them. So we had different ideas, but yeah, I did. Once I can remember vividly, I had auditioned for So You Think You Can Dance, which is a Fox television show, and it's like only 20 contestants, right? And they eliminate as they go along, and it's an arduous process. Like, I mean, the auditions are rigorous. Like, just everything about it is really challenging. And I remember I made it. I made it to top 20. It was 2008, and it was season 4. I had auditioned each year. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had auditioned since the first thing. And, the first year I auditioned with my own, like, folklorico. The second one I auditioned with, like, a Spanish thing. And then the third I auditioned with, like, my own style. And then the fourth I just said, let me just try to be this prima ballerina. So I did ballet on point, but, like, a little bit more contemporary, and I made it. And I was the first to be eliminated. And when I got the show, I was like, oh my gosh, my community, like, I'm representing La Puente, like, I'm a folklorico dancer. I was like, every question that they asked me, it was like about folklorico. I was trying to represent my community, and I was the first to be eliminated, and that was really hard for me. I said, I'm never going to dance again, ever. I had just started, I was almost finished with my political science, my bachelor's in political science, and I was like, I am going to get out of here. My professor offered me this position in China. I was studying Chinese politics. It was kind of my focus, and he was like, you would love it out there. You could have a job. So I was like, I'm out. And I left for 6 years. Yeah, and interestingly enough, students out there recognized me from the show, and they asked me to teach them. And I was like, if you figure out all the logistics, which I doubt they would, that's what I was like. I made it so hard. Like, if you figure out where you talk to the principal, you make it a class, you pay me, you figure out how much to pay me, because I have no idea what, Chinese money, I don't know. They came back the next week with a list, like, we did this, we got that, it's going to be in this room, it's this, this at this time, this is how much we're going to pay you. And I was like, whoa. And they stayed with me for 3 years. They danced with me for 3 years. Wow. And they taught me, a lot about Chinese. They were Taiwanese, but they taught me a lot about the language, about Mandarin. I mean, they just taught me so much. They say I taught them so much, but I mean, they really taught me so much. And that was when I came back to dance. I applied to the master's at UCLA, and I got in, and I was like, okay, I guess this is for me.
I'm amazed that you even reconsidered just being a dancer when you made it to TV, national TV. And I
thought I disappointed everybody. I didn't see it from that perspective. Yeah.
But sometimes you have to live through those pains, right? To be rebirthed. The phoenix in you comes out from that pain. I mean, I do remember you being really hard on yourself and trying to about creating your own identity in that community, right? Because in some ways you were the extension of, and all of us want to be our own person. And I mean, you didn't see it that way, but the rest of us, we saw Rayven as Rayven. We didn't see Rayven as the extension of, but when you're in a mother-daughter relationship, it's different. I mean, you're so in that environment that somehow you have to figure out. And going to China was one of those experiences that helped you find yourself. I love that story. And full disclosure, I've known Rayven for many, many years now. And I love working with her. I love our conversations. I love what we discovered together, the things that I learned about me and having conversations with her and observing and just being privileged to see you flourish like you do. But I love that story of you going into that studio and dancing with the older women.
Yeah.
Because I think that tells a little bit of why you do the things you do. So can you share with us?
My friend invited me to work out at a gym, and of course I was like, yeah, I want to see what that's like in China. So I went, and there was like a dance floor, and of course, I mean, there's like, a workout room for aerobics or whatever, and there were mirrors and a beautiful floor, and I was like, I'm dancing. So I just started dancing. And this lady comes up to me and was just like, wow, in Chinese, wow, just like, how很漂亮, you're so beautiful, 你跳舞很好, like you dance so well. Do you teach? And I was like,
Yes.
And she was like, well, we have a class for you. Teach us how to dance. And I started teaching at that gym. I started teaching all these ladies they were all probably, I would say they had to be over 50. And they looked kind of young, some of them, but they had to be over 50s, maybe even some 70. And they were all like trained dancers, maybe as younger people. And they just kept doing it, and that was fun. I did that for almost 3 years too, and they taught me traditional dance as well as I taught them like my own style, and I had to think in Chinese too because none of them spoke English, so I had to teach in Chinese and try to figure out what do I even do in another language. I'm not really sure, but I just kind of had to figure it out, and they loved it. It was really fun. That was a really great experience. Like, I called one of them my Chinese mom and dad, because they really took care of me. And they've come out to visit a couple times to the U.S. And yeah, I still have a very strong relationship with them.
And that's what I mean. You build relationships intergenerationally, right? And multiculturally, because you know how to connect people. And I think that, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the observing eye here. I think that you do the things you do because you are capable of building relationships. And it's not a book you read, it's not a training that you got. It's an essence that has been developed within you that just flows. That's what you can't pinpoint it, right? You said earlier, well, I haven't thought about that, I just do it. But it's because it's so much part of you. And if there was a way of making a little extract of that, you could probably sell
maybe that goes back to how you were brought up with community and your parents, and dance being an expression of that.
Yeah.
It all goes back together.
But I think it's in all of communities that feel like everyone around them is important, and I think Chinese communities are definitely like that. We just don't. Latin, communities are like that here in the U.S. because we need each other. We build each other up. We think, oh, if my sister goes to college, that's going to help us as a family, and so I'm going to do everything I can to help her go. Or, I think that is built, but sometimes in the U.S. we're forced to disengage from that community, and we're not allowed to see how powerful it is because of the language that we're forced to use, that sometimes we lose. We still do it. It's like a habit. It's just a way of being, but yet it's not highlighted in our community because of the language maybe that we're using in the US, the kind of separation, or the kind of like, I need to do this, or the capitalist, quote unquote system that forces us to be like, well, I need to make my own money, I need to do this, or I, rather than we, and us, right? And I think normally we start off our families that way, but then something kind of pulls us apart, we get a little disjointed. But I think it's embedded in there, it's just, I just have a different experience not needing the US system in a way, like it's really weird. I didn't go to the same kind of high school. I didn't watch TV as much because I was like I was dancing at night, I didn't go, I went to a Catholic school in my elementary. So there were just certain things that I just didn't get involved in the kind of US system. Even just money, we didn't have to, my parents did, but I didn't have to really do other jobs. It was just about my community. Well, how do I support them so they support me? It was like, we give and take. So I think it's there. We just lack the language to really illuminate that power we have, and I think even our, thinking about faith is a way that they pull us from that community language that we could build on. That's the start, right? That, God is the start, and we all do it together for God, right? And we lose that in some feminist language, we lose that in some of this like unity language, like black and brown is more important than, white, or something, white is more, and race. We lose that language of us that we normally would have if we were able to practice our faith in a proper way, really.
And you're segueing straight into one of our 4 topics that we cover in this show, which is faith. Can you share some symbols that are important to you? I mean, it sounds like you already really critically think, have your own perspective of what faith is, or it's something that's very unique to you. What is faith to you? What are some symbols that are important in your life? You mentioned growing up, going to Catholic school as well. How has that shaped your faith today, or how has that even challenged your faith today?
My dad really shaped my faith. Growing up, he was always very truthful with me. Always, like, never made it language for a kid. He just told me what was what, and he taught me what he was learning himself with his own faith. And I was only baptized Catholic. I was like this 6-year-old, the only like one holding my own candle. I was this huge kid, but or 5, only to do it because he wanted me to go to Catholic school. Only to have that education. He wasn't Catholic himself, my mom was, but he didn't follow it, but he felt that the education system would really benefit me because he didn't think he could do it himself, and he thought that would be the best thing. And it really was probably the best education. But I would say I lost, not he didn't pass away, but I lost my dad when I was 15, and that was a critical, they got divorced, and it was really ugly, really, really ugly, and I wasn't really allowed to see him. The relationship was difficult, and so I was about to graduate from my faith, everything he taught me. I was getting to that age maybe where I was about to really understand things in an adult kind of or mature way, and then he was gone, and it was like, what do I do now? I don't know where to go. I have all this information, but I don't know what to do with it. I don't even know what it means. So there was something in there that just was not guided. And then when I met Dalila, I remember Dalila that, we would have conversations, short ones, and then you really started to get to know me and really like have deeper conversations with me and understand. You kind of like understood me before I understood myself, and you guided me. I didn't even read, I was like, I don't care about anything. Like, I just want to party, and that's all I care about. And you guided me to The Alchemist. And I remember when I read that book, it changed my life. People say that all the time, but it was like, whoa, my dad taught me these things when I was a kid. He already knew this stuff, and I already know this stuff. Now, how do I apply it to understanding God better? Really, like understanding who I am, and that is understanding my faith, for sure. And it's taken me quite a long time to get here and to even be able to articulate it. Like, if you would have asked me last year, I would have been quiet. I would not have known how to even express myself. My dad shaped me, and now he still is like a strong part of what I do and my practice and my faith. I think the book, the word, is probably the symbol that define my faith, because even though it's not perfect, there's still perfectness in it, that you have to find, that it reveals itself to only you, and that's really powerful. And understanding its imperfections, it's like a relationship, with other people. That they're not perfect, and you begin to figure out, well, how do I love the imperfections about them? Like, what, first, how do I love their perfections? I guess that's the first thing I do with a relationship. It's like, how do I love everything that's awesome about them? And I like gush on that. And then I'm like, okay, how do I love these imperfections, that I start to reveal themselves? And that's how I treat the Bible. And that's one of the symbols that most define me. I don't know if you asked about rituals, but that probably is it. And relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that, yes. And in our conversations lately, we've entered into that space, right? We've talked a lot about faith and the Bible. And you are, in my perspective, an avid reader of the Bible. And you don't read it to take the word as a dictating command. You take it as a reflective, which is what should be, right? A reflective point, and you figure out, or you think about, how does that relate to me as a woman, as a leader, as a friend? It's as a part of the world, as a member of the community, and not necessarily just as a daughter of God, but all these many other roles that you have. And I think that there's a beauty. I mean, I just finished a degree in theology, and I think that sometimes in our conversations, I learn more because I have that pocket of information that I have received in my instruction, right? But here you are with your reflections and your own theology, because that's what it is. We all are entitled to have our own theology. We all live faith in our own way. That's the gift that we get. But like you said, you're now articulating it in a way that sometimes it doesn't just make sense to you. It makes sense to those of us who are listening. I mean, to me, you leave me thinking in the roles of women and who we are and how we're depicted in the Bible.
Yeah. I mean, that is my quest, I guess. Is that like what are these roles that we play, and why understanding Genesis, this woman and man process that they talk about is the first, the part of the first things that they talk about, that God talks about in the Bible. And it's like, what does it all mean, and why are we suddenly excluded from so many parts as it goes along, and it's like they can't completely exclude us because we're so important, you and I had talked about Miriam, in Exodus, like there are parts that just can't be taken out. They got to put it in there because it was so important, but it's not, it's just a snippet, there's just so much that is missing, I think. Or in Ruth, why is it so short? It's like one of the most powerful stories, but yet it's so short. You can read it in 20 minutes or less. And there are parts missing. I keep going back and I'm like, what? Like, how did you get from that point to that point? I don't understand. There's something missing there,
Can you expand on Miriam and Ruth just a little bit? I know for myself, I'm not very well versed in the Bible, and I did find interesting because right before conversation with Dalila, she shared some of your perspective on how what it's missing is the female perspective, or the power of the female, of the woman, and the fact that women are the ones creating life. And here we have the story of Adam and Eve, and Eve coming from Adam's rib, which is kind of taking away some of that power of the woman. Yeah,
I mean, I think it's impossible when you are. I say, all of us that are dancers, and the dancers that I've mentored, we are ethnographers as young kids. We have to learn how to study people and study our art and study these stories. We're many ethnographers that don't get the credit, that we deserve as little kids. As little kids, we have to discover these things about culture and people. And when you do that, you start to realize when things don't make sense, or when there's certain archetypes of things that they just are, and a woman is it just is, and a man sometimes just is. I mean, you could be a woman in a man's body, whatever that is. I don't know about all that gender fluidity to talk about it like that, but there's something about a woman having a child, and there's something about woman giving life that is so powerful. And there's something about communication between a woman giving life and creating life and molding life, because that's a job that we just do. It's not you have a kid, you have to do it, right? I mean, sometimes people don't want to and they move on, but most of the time women take over the job, right? Like, okay, I'm the one that gives the life, I'm the one that takes care of them. Even if I have a job, I'm the one that molds them. And there's a certain communication that you don't have to use language. There's something about a woman communicating that there's no talking. And what I started to think about was like, wow, when they talk about quote unquote Adam and God, I don't think that there was words. You know, I really think communication was happening some other kind of way to be able to speak to animals, you know, and animals to communicate back. Not speak, I don't want to use speak because I'm talking about communication. And I was like, well, women normally do that. I don't know, you know, men can feel that way, but I think women usually communicate like that. And women are the ones that give life. What a clever patriarchal way to to say a man gave his rib to her. You know, wow, that's super clever. And that's really logical. Like I'm not logical in the same way. Like I feel first, you know, if it doesn't feel right, then I start to question. If it feels right, then I start to wonder why. You know, the way it feels first, and that's a communication. It's with my body, with my spirit, with my soul, with my mind. It's not always with my words, you know? And I think that's where I started to think, well, I think this story is reversed. You know, that there's a interesting thing about it. Even the serpent, the word says in the Bible, it says deceives. Oh, but in Hebrew, it actually means seduces, right? So seducing, you know, thinking about that word, what, you know, how often do women get seduced? Like, it's not a normal archetypal story, right? I mean, it usually in movies or in books, you know, it's like the woman comes and seduces a man. You know, a man gets seduced. And I'm curious about that. Like, well, like, it just doesn't make sense. It's curious to me. It doesn't mean I believe it. It's just something I want to explore myself. And that's one part. Yeah.
I love that you, I mean, since you were younger with questioning whether you wanted to be a teacher, rebelling, going off to China, you've always, a huge part of our life journeys, you read The Alchemist, a huge part of our life journeys is being our best selves, being the best Rayven, and you had to really challenge a lot of these views along your own journey with challenging your when you know, dancing with your upbringing. And I love that you do that. And for me, it's something that I relate to a lot. I tell Vanilla all the time how I was such a good Catholic daughter. I fought to be just the best version of, for a long time, what my parents wanted. And somewhere along the journey, you really have to challenge what you're being taught and do it the way that the best version that you want of who you are. And you face some of that inner turmoil, and I'm seeing this, how you're challenging it even through your view of religion, Catholicism. There's a lot of challenge that comes along with it. So I love that you do that. And I mean, I know we're coming close to the end of the show, but we touched upon power and how do I influence my inner and outer circle. We touched upon a little about that, but part of the power that I see in you is that you do challenge. You are not afraid to be yourself. You're this rebel, and you bring it within the community. Are there any other ways that you feel you influence others that go along with that? Like, has your rebellious side helped you do that?
Yeah, I need a second to think about that, because I'm not sure that is for everyone, you know, and it just made me think of the Bible itself. And, you know, thinking about your life, you know, I was comparing and wondering, like, what does that mean, being a good Catholic girl? And, you know, I relate myself to dance a lot, and I think about my own research is about studying the Mexicas and why they danced, the Aztecs. What was so important about it that was missing from the ethnographer's observation. That why did we dance? And you revealed something that was interesting, and it's that we teach by doing, and the Bible does tell us that. We teach by doing. Don't idolatry is the most important thing, because by doing those things you're teaching the next generation, right, to love that thing, right? And we have to teach them to only love God, and that's the most important thing. And I was thinking about you and how you think you're not rebellious, or you weren't, but you were learning from your parents, and that is so important. That's powerful. That's what you want to do. But when we learn to read the Bible, as we don't as Catholics, particularly, Dalila and I have had this kind of discussion, but as kids, we don't learn we're not forced to read it. We're forced to just follow. And I think if we had the opportunity to discover these stories, we would discover how we can take risks without rebelling so, opposite. It's just like, I'm going to do the worst of the worst so I can figure it out, right? Rather, we learn, we can make some changes here. I can take a risk here because Joseph did, and he didn't care that all these bad things happened to him, but he took a risk by trying to help the emperor, right? And like tell him his dreams and his stories, right? He knew himself enough that he was able to take that risk. And when you know yourself, you know what kind of risks you need to take. And I think for me, though, my dad always told me, you're never going to learn unless you do it wrong or unless you find out the hard way, And it was like, that's how I particularly had to learn. Is like, I had to do it the hard way because my body needed to experience it, because my head didn't understand why you were telling me no. I didn't get the no until I experienced it, and I was like, oh, that's why you told me no. Now I get it. So I guess like just, and my parents gave me that power too. They gave me that power to do that. And I think when I see Dalila's kids as well, and now they're women, but I feel like you gave them, Dalila, that same thing. It's like, know who you are first, and then take risks, and they have, they do, and it might not be exactly what you want, Dalila, but they, and sometimes it might be, it just depends on the process, right? But they have that core tool already, I know myself enough that I can take enough risks. Maybe it'll be too far. Maybe that's the person that I am. I'm not like my sister or my brother, but that's it. And that's why God says, love thy mother and thy father, follow them, because they know you and they know how to guide you, to teach you who you are. Yeah.
And the time comes when you have to find yourself, right? Who you are, where your essence is, because God is within you. It's not outside. It's not at the shopping mall. It's not in the games you play or the TV show or the movie stars. It really is always with you, inside of you. And it's in those silent moments where you have those questions, seeking understanding, where you find God, right? And sometimes it stops with God created it, and that's it. Because at that moment, you can't think beyond that. But when you are in touch with that, and you keep living life, and you keep observing others and finding the good and the challenges that others bring to you, you find the answers that you seek, right? But it's all within self-discovery. And I think that that's a place where you're at right now, that I am so enamored with what you're doing with your new nonprofit and the teaching that you're starting. And I want you to share a little bit of what you're doing with the Mijas, how that is taking you to teach at Pepperdine University, how you're working towards going back to school and getting your doctorate, right? It's a lot to say in a few words, but I do want you to share a little bit of that, and we'll, when we publish this conversation, we'll put your handles there too, but do share your handles too. Where can people find you so that they learn what you're doing and to take classes with you, because you do teach live and online.
Right. Well, I think, again, my parents taught me, this way of teaching that's like, let's learn everything. Let's learn everything and teach everything. And so I started to create this group called the Mijas. The Mijas is a play on words in a way, because my mom always called us everyone Mija, and Mija and Mijo, that was your name. And we all knew which Mija or Mijo she was talking about, right?
Right.
And so I thought, I often don't hear her voice. And that was an important thing in my life. It was her voice. And every time I say the Mijas, I hear her. And also it's this Spanglish idea too, that it's like, it's not just a group that does one thing. We teach Tahitian, which has also been like a legacy kind of style from Ariana's mother taught her, and now Ariana teaches it. Sorry. My dad teaches martial arts dance with me that we created when I was 5 years old. We started creating a style of modifying some of the kung fu and teaching martial arts dance. We teach folklorico for sure. We teach my mom's folklorico and also my own style of, I call it Chicano folklorico. And we do ballet and flamenco. And so it's a lot. And social dance, yeah, right. Different social dance. So American style social dances, hip hop, some like swing stuff, and also Latin social dances, because I think that's really important. Salsa, cumbia, those things. So it's kind of a mixture. And I from going to UCLA and studying my master's in choreography, we did 2 years of academic study. It was not, dance and movement. It was really understanding what dance is and how to talk about it and how to talk about our own work and practice. And I think doing that revealed to me so much. And people try to stick you in a box, and label you. And I don't fit in I don't think I fit in any of those boxes. Maybe I fit in one, but I probably fit in the other one, in the opposite of it. And my professor that I wanted to mentor with, her name is Chung Jae Yu. She's Taiwanese, and I wanted to study with her because of the way she can use her art of martial arts and create dance and talk about it and use her culture. And I was like, wow, I want to be just like her. And we studied for 3 years together. We worked together. We taught classes together at UCLA. And she really knew me. Yeah, I remember she wrote a recommendation for me, and I was like, whoa, Chungjae, I didn't know you knew me like that. That's crazy. And so she got offered, asked to recommend someone for musical theater at Pepperdine, which might not seem like my forte, but actually that I do more of an unorthodox way of creating musical theater, meaning like I use rapping, instead of singing, and I do use singing, and maybe not all of us have been trained singers, so I use certain people to sing certain parts. I don't use jazz all the time, but I use folklorico, as the main narrative, as the main communicator of movement. I create stories. It's storytelling for sure. It's, there's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end. It might not always have a script. I've written plays before at Mount Sac, but they have a script in their own way. And I think as I'm developing as an artist, I think it will even be more defined. Teaching this class will define my musical theater frame, right? What does it mean to be unorthodox, and I think I'm still learning that, but I think teaching this class will really figure that out. Yeah. And my research is also thinking about how to understand our past, and thinking about God as our past, and also Mexica culture as our past, and like understanding that connection. The Mexicas always knew someone was going to come, and they were ready to change, because I think that they knew that the faith of God was coming. They knew that was going to change them. And yeah, maybe it was oppressive, but I think it was purposeful. I think understanding maybe the Catholic religion at the time was very oppressive because it was man-made, but I think the Mexicas knew that it was, they knew about future and circles and change, and they knew that this was important for the people, that finding the real God, not this maybe bastardized gods that they were serving, right? And I think that we all need that process, and process is important. We don't get anywhere without process. You can't just change. People think you can, people think they can grieve in a different way and like be fine, but they end up going through every single process. We think of time so short, a year, a century, but time is endless with God, right? And we have to go through a process, and that's what my research, I hope, will reflect, because of dance. Dance is the way I've figured that out, that information out.
That is so interesting. I haven't even thought about a lot of I've never even contemplated. You're really challenging my views right now, Rayven. And I feel like we could talk about this for hours.
Yes.
But yeah, no, definitely. Thank you so much for joining our show. We're a bit over time than we normally do. And like I said, we can continue on for hours on this, but I do want to thank you for joining us this morning on Cafecito Con, and for all of our listeners in there. We do appreciate you hopping on this morning and listening in on our morning conversation. We hope that we have inspired and enlightened you, and we are excited for everyone to join us in 2 weeks for our next session. And as we do end the show normally, I would like to leave you with some food for thought this morning. Think like a queen. A queen is not afraid to fail. Failure is another stepping stone to greatness. And that is from our very inspirational Oprah.
Nice.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Cafecito Con is a production of the heart by two intergenerational women who hope to bring you conversations with women for women. You can listen live every Thursday by connecting with us via the Clubhouse app using your phone. Look for us by our name, Cafecito Con. We encourage you to keep listening, and if you'd like to send us a message, do so via Instagram at 2Cafecito Con. That is number 2, Cafecito Con, all in one word. Feel free to share the link and keep listening.